Come on. All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Unscripted Live here on the Elite Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as live on Northeast Streaming Sports' Roku channel. I'll be your host and producer this evening, Logan Landers, and join me to talk about some NFL Week 9 game predictions. As always, Jay McLovin. What's up, my friend?
I am doing well, sir. I am doing ecstatically well. Will Levis got me 8 points in Fantasy League. Woohoo! Good job, Will Levis.
Attaboy, Will. And down, or actually, one step ahead of me here, Dustin Reese, our stat guy. How you doing this fine Friday evening, my friend?
Jay, why didn't you take fantasy advice from me when I was giving advice in the group chat?
Oh,
I didn't take no advice from you. I just went. I had to pick up a quarterback because Kirk Cousins was down and out.
I wouldn't have told you to take Will Levis against Pittsburgh's defense, though.
No, man, but I was just playing. I was just hoping. Okay, I was doing some hopes and some prayers. I was really kind of hoping that the whole DeAndre Hopkins 3 touchdown thing would happen again, so I would get like double the touchdowns. It just didn't happen that way.
And I will say, guys, before we get started, these are probably the best games we're going to get. I sent these guys this photo I found earlier this morning about some Week 9 QB matchups coming into this week. We have, and also we're not covering these games, just a heads up. We have such slugfests like Daniel Jones versus Aiden O'Connell, an absolute battle of the Titans between Jaron Hall and Taylor Heineke. Of course, who could forget the legend of Clayton Tune and PJ Walker, followed up by Tyson Bagnet and Derek Carr. And finally, the main event, Brett Ripon and Jordan Love. Just
Logan.
Look at
Logan. I don't know. Logan, I don't know if you saw the reports about an hour ago.
I did not know what happened.
Kyler Murray is now starting over Clayton Tune.
Would you look at that? So now we can see Kyler Murray take on PJ Walker. All right.
Deshaun Watson is also starting.
Oh, would you look at it's just a miracle on this Friday. I think it's just the season's changing, so that's why. So look at at least we got some good luck. Anyways, let's get it going here with a great matchup here. Kansas City Chiefs and Miami Dolphins. Jay McLovin, you're up to bat first. Who do you have winning this one?
Yeah, this is going to be probably one of the more epic games. And my wife hates when I say epic because she says it means a long novel, but I don't care. It's going to be a long novel of Hill versus Kansas City is what it's going to be. So I'm going to use the word epic. There you go, Mel. How you like them apples?
She says, staring you down.
So, yeah, no, it's going to be a lot of Tyreek Hill. Matter of fact, Tyreek Hill actually came out and said, this is going to he said, how did he say it? Going to get this work. That's what he said. I'm sorry. I'm trying to make sure I paraphrase him right. He said Kansas City is going to get this work. That's what Tyreek Hill said. So it's a long, epic novel of them getting this work. Epic, Melanie. I used it correctly. I just want you to know that. But, yeah, look. Tagovailoa, 18 touch, 7 picks. Don't like the picks, but good touchdown ratio. And then you look at Mahomes. He ain't much better at 15-8. Right now, I'm looking at this season, and it's very unpressured Mahomes-like. I don't know if I've ever seen where he's got, over half the amount of interceptions as he does the touchdowns. It's just weird to me to see him have that. But again, you got Pacheco over there. He's got 459 yards and 3. And then you got Mostert at 520 and 10. I'm going to take the Mostert at 520 and 10 over Pacheco. Sounds like a Russian dictator. But yeah. And then you got Hill, man. I mean, 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. I mean, this dude is on pace. I don't know how many yards he's going to have, Logan. But do you think he gets to 2,000? I don't know. The man's on a crazy pace.
He is. We'll see if he gets
it's crazy. It's great. And then, of course, he's going up against Kelsey. I mean, look, nothing against Travis Kelsey. We know how good Travis Kelsey is. He's the best tight end in the game. Nobody's going to – but come on. If this is your number one receiver, is your tight end, and you have nobody else after that? No, go ahead and give me a healthy dose of Waddle and Tyreek Hill and Mostert any day of the week. I got Dolphins 28-14.
All right, Dustin Reese, similar thoughts?
Well, I would not choose Pacheco over Mostert over Pacheco because I have both of them for fantasy. So it'll work out very well for me this weekend. But
makes sense.
this is definitely a battle for home field, in my opinion, for the AFC playoffs. If you look at the standings right now, Kansas City, Kansas City is now the number 2 seed behind the Dolphins. Obviously, if they win, they move ahead of the Dolphins versus because of tiebreakers and things like that. So I said the Dolphins are going to go to the Super Bowl mainly because I figured if Miami gets home field, it's going to be very difficult for anyone to go into Miami and win. Kind of the same feeling if Kansas City gets home field for the playoffs, it'll be very difficult for anyone to go into Kansas City and win because Patrick Mahomes has been in the playoffs 7 times in his 7 years as a starter, and he has yet to play a road playoff game yet. And we've pretty much seen the results that it's happened every time he's had home field. And what Jay was saying about Travis Kelce being the number 1 option, even when Tyreek Hill was in Kansas City, Travis Kelce was still that number 1 option. Granted, he did have more help when Tyreek Hill was there. He doesn't have as much help as he does now, but Travis Kelce's always been that number 1 option for Patrick Mahomes, and that's not going to change whether Tyreek Hill's with him, whether Jamar Chase was with him, whether Justin Jefferson's with him. Travis Kelce is still going to be that number 1 option for Patrick Mahomes no matter who's there with him. I will
make that defense easier though to key in on him and double team him. I think that's where I was going with that is the fact that he just doesn't have the help like what Tyreek would give him or what Juju gave him. He just doesn't have that help.
I am going to give the advantage to Kansas City just because a lot of times when you have players kind of come in with that mindset that this is going to be a revenge game or this is kind of going to be one of those games where you kind of want to prove the other team that they made a mistake for getting rid of you, you put a lot more pressure on yourself than what you need to when you end up actually playing worse than what you typically would if you thought about it as just a regular old game. And I was listening to the Travis and Jason Kelce podcast earlier this week, and Travis Kelce said after the way they lost to Denver, there was a feeling in that locker room that they haven't had since they lost to New England in the AFC Championship game 5 years ago. And everyone basically said it's taken us way too long to score touchdowns and settle for field goals. And Kelce pretty much said it's on the offense now where we're going to start carrying this team, enough of the defense carrying it for us. And an angry Kansas City team is not a team that I want to see. So I think Kansas City is going to win this game. I think it's going to be 34-30.
Yeah, this is really a toss-up here. I mean, you got 2 obviously really good teams who we've seen their ups, we've seen their downs this season. I mean, they're both really good teams. There's no questioning it. Like you said, this is more than likely the team who wins this game could very well get the home field advantage in the AFC come playoff time. You talked about, their offenses, their defenses, and honestly, guys, I'm just going to have to just kind of toss a coin up and see what I go with. It's a good match. It really is, man. It's a really good matchup on both ends. I'm definitely going to be watching this one. I'll go with the Dolphins getting a win in this one and kind of putting their foot down, right, claiming their stake and saying, look, we are legit this year. I mean, don't brush by us just because we're having some early on success. So I'll go the Dolphins getting a win this one. Close ball game, 33-30. High scoring affair. Looking forward to watching it this upcoming weekend. Up next on the docket, we have the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Baltimore Ravens. Dustin Reese, who's winning this one?
This is going to be another good game between 2 teams sitting with 2 losses. And Baltimore's kind of in the same spot as Miami and Kansas City right now. They're 2 losses. They're right on the top of the conference standings, but I believe they're 3rd in the AFC right now behind the other 2. So Baltimore pretty much has to win to keep pace with no matter what Kansas City or Miami does. And with the 49ers now losing 3 straight games, the Seattle Seahawks are actually leading the NFC West. And it's a team that nobody's even talking about in the NFC. You still have the Philadelphia Eagles, which everyone talks about. You still have the San Francisco 49ers, which everybody talks about no matter if they're losing 3 games in a row. But here are the Seattle Seahawks who traded for the guy from the Giants, Leonard Williams, to play defensive tackle, a very underrated pickup that not a lot of people have talked about. Then you have Frank Clark, who just signed with the Seattle Seahawks to improve that defense. You have Grant Witherspoon, who was a top 5 pick, who's already proving that he's an elite cornerback. You still have Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, Noah Fant, Kenneth Walker on the offense. Geno Smith is still looking like that Geno Smith from last year. This Seattle team is a very good team, and they need to start being taken seriously in the NFC because they were a good team last year that just missed out on the playoffs. And now they're kind of building on that this year and have continued to just build off of the success they had last year. If this game was in Seattle, I would go with Seattle. But because the game is in Baltimore, I'm going to go with Baltimore. But I think it's going to be another close one, 27-24.
All right, Jay, who's winning this one?
Yeah, I'm right there in terms of it's going to be a close one with Dustin. Seahawks versus the Ravens, like you said, 5-2, 6-2. I mean, it's just one more game. So yeah, it's going to be really close. I do like what Lamar Jackson's doing over there. He's having a really good season. We know he's having a good season. He's only thrown 3 interceptions, which is really good. And obviously Smith has thrown 6, but Smith is still having a decent season, not bad. And yeah, I look at Walker. Walker the third at 5.16 at 4.4 yards a carry to Edwards at 4 yards a carry. It's almost a wash, even kind of at the running back level. But I do think that Jackson is that X factor. He does have the edge, obviously, over Geno Smith. Metcalf is looking pretty good at 400 yards and 2 touch. Zay Flowers has got 461 and a touch. So even the receivers are pretty hand in hand. I do think for Baltimore, what I think is the X factor for those guys, just like Travis Kelce is for Patrick Mahomes, Mark Andrews is for Lamar Jackson, and he's got like 397 and 6 touchdowns. So it's kind of like, I figure that Zay Flowers and Marcus Andrews is like a 1-2 punch for those guys. And I don't know if Lockett, Metcalf, and that Njigba, I guess that's how you say his last name, if those guys can handle all that. I just think that Baltimore is going to be a little bit more than what they can handle. And like you said, it is being played in Baltimore, so they had the home field advantage. I'm going to go kind of close to what Stat Guy said. I think 21-13 in favor of the Ravens.
All right. For me in this one, like I said, I think it's also kind of an underrated, not being looked at a whole lot. But it's definitely one to keep your eye on, which is why we're covering it here today. You mentioned could be obviously another look at the quarterbacks with Geno Smith continuing his success from last year, and Lamar Jackson also putting up very good numbers so far through 8 weeks of play. So for me, I'm going to have to go close game in this one. I see a lot of close games this week. Give me the Baltimore Ravens, like you mentioned, with the home field advantage. I'm going to have them winning this game 28-21, 7-point game. We'll see what happens this Sunday. All right, up next on our slate of games, Jay, you have a very close personal tie with this one, obviously, taking on your division rivals out there in the NFC East.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Philadelphia Eagles. Give your breakdown of this one. What can the Cowboys do to get a win?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, look, I did want to say one thing. I want to go back to the Seahawks-Ravens game just for one quick second. I wanted to keep my consistency. I cannot say Patrick Mahomes isn't playing like great when he's got those interceptions. When Geno Smith has 6 interceptions to 9, that's well over. That's like 75%. Almost as much touchdowns. So Geno Smith, actually, you're not playing good. Okay. I just want to be consistent. I can't get Patrick Mahomes a biz if I don't keep it consistent with Geno Smith.
I understand.
Okay. Now we're moving on. Eagles, Cowboys. Yeah. Logan, I'm nervous about, I'm always nervous about this game. I'm as nervous about this game as I was when they played the 49ers. I just hope that we don't melt down like we did against the 49ers. I hope we get that team that played. Logan, who was it we played last week that we blew up? The Rams, I think it was.
Mm-hmm. It was.
I need the Cowboys that played against the Rams. If we get the Cowboys that played against the Rams and we get that energy, I'm taking Cowboys all day. But if I get the Cowboys that went out there and played San Francisco, oh no, we're good. We're good. It's gonna be Eagles all day. And I'm gonna tell you where the difference is, Logan. The difference starts with 2 people and 2 people only to make that difference. It's going to start off with Dak Prescott not turning the ball over and playing 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, no pick. I don't need to be 3 touchdowns. Just give me 2. I don't care. Because I think that if the defense and Micah Parsons, which is the second guy, does his job, and if he can spy and contain Jalen Hurts and don't let Jalen Hurts get out of that pocket, keep him pressured, keep that to where A.J. Brown and Dante Smith can't do what they do. And if you try to make Swift beat you up the middle, but we know that we have a good run-stopping defense now. We've shown that we can stop the run up the middle. That's the key factors. Dak can't turn over the ball. They got to come out with the same energy as the Rams, and Micah Parsons has to do his stop on defense. If Micah and Dak do their jobs, it can be Cowboys over the Eagles, but it's going to take all their effort. So I'm going to take a flyer on the Cowboys that they were thoroughly embarrassed out there in San Francisco. I think they're feeling good about themselves. I think Micah Parsons is feeling good about himself. So I'm going to roll with the Cowboys, not because I'm a fan. I actually think that they can beat them if they play Cowboys style of ball. So I'm going to go Cowboys. But again, this is another one I think that could be close or it could be a blowout, depending on the energy. I'm going to go 28-27, favor the Cowboys.
All right, Dustin, who's taking home this one in the NFC East?
Like Jay said, the way they got embarrassed against San Francisco, I think woke the Cowboys up a little bit, because since that game they're playing much better and are looking like the Cowboys that started the season before that little hiccup against Arizona. But you could say the same thing about Philadelphia right now. Philadelphia is also starting to play like the Philadelphia team that was the best team in the NFC last year. Granted, Jalen Hurts has more turnovers this year than he had last year already, but DeAndre Swift is a better running back than Miles Sanders, who they were leaning on heavily last year. DeAndre Swift is now emerging as one of the best running backs in football. You still have the Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown connection, and A.J. Brown has turned himself into the best receiver in the NFL, not named Tyreek Hill or Justin Jefferson this year, just because he just set an NFL record for the most consecutive games with 125 yards receiving. So Philadelphia is very explosive. Their defense is still the Philadelphia defense, and you can make a case that's part of the reason why the Eagles only have one loss right now, is because their defense saved them a lot of games early on in the season by forcing turnovers. I don't see Dallas getting blown out in this game, just because Dallas has always played Philadelphia tough, and it's the one team that they're always going to play tough no matter what the record is. But I think Philadelphia gets this one just because I like the way Philly's playing more consistently over the last month as opposed to that one loss by Dallas. But I'm not going to be surprised if this goes down to like the final 3 seconds and is decided by a field goal.
All right. Well said. Well said. Yeah, this is, I mean, like I said, we picked the good games this week, guys. And obviously this one has playoff implications. Who's going to be rolling as the NFC champion in the East? Between these two battles here, these two teams with Jalen Hurts and with Dak Prescott. And I think it is going to be a good game overall. Dustin brought a good point saying the Eagles early in the year were carried by their defense when we thought their offense was going to be a lot better. And here recently, they've really turned it up another notch with how they've been putting points up on the board. And Jay, you mentioned for Dallas, it's all about, Dak Prescott. And if he can keep it clean in the pocket, if he can avoid sacks, if he can limit fumbles and turnovers and interceptions, and also too, just can he handle the bright lights? Yeah, I mean that's one thing that you've always told us about Dak is when the lights get a little bright, whenever there's a big game, whether it be playoff game, primetime games, or division games, he might not show up and he might not do as good as he normally does against lesser opponents or just certain time slots. So for that reason, I can't trust him yet, Jay. He hasn't proven it yet, but we'll see if he can shut me up and shut a lot of people up wrong and prove the doubters. But for that reason, man, I'm going to have to rock with the Eagles. I have this one being close, though. Dustin, you mentioned a late game field goal. That's what I want in this one. Final score in this one, Philadelphia 28 and the Cowboys 25. 3-point ball game. And like I said, another really good game here, another toss-up. And the NFC. All right, let's move on over. AFC now. The Bills and the Bengals. Another solid matchup here. Of course, Josh Allen out there in Buffalo and Joe Burrow with the Bengals. Jay, I'll have you kick things off, my friend. Who's taking the win in this one?
Yeah, this is another really good game between two teams. We know the Bengals have typically gotten off to late starts. It seems like they're always are starting to come back towards the middle part of the season, which I think is kind of where they are currently. Obviously, the Bills have not had the kind of start they would like to have had. They've lost some key games there. But the Bengals are 5-3. Bengals are 4-3. Bills 5-3. So really, are almost kind of an equal type of footing. I'm gonna go. I think the Bills are gonna pull this out. They brought in Leonard Fournette to kind of help out that run game, and I'm curious to see how Leonard Fournette changes the run game, if he can change the run game up there in Buffalo. James Cook is not playing bad, but I think they brought in Fournette to kind of be that thunder and lightning type of combination. And I will tell you this: Allen does turn the ball over quite a bit, eight turnovers to Burrow's 4. So that could be an issue with Allen is his turnovers right now. But when you look at the running backs, they're pretty close. I mean, they're almost about equal, Mixon and Cook. There's not really too much of a difference there. And I think Knox, Diggs, and Davis versus the Higgins, Chase, and Boyd combo. I just like that Bills, man. I just think Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis and what they got with Knox, it's going to be tough. I think but if the Bengals can play with the energy that they played against the 49ers, because we know they took out Brock Purdy and the 49ers. So I don't want to overlook that. You know what? I'm going to change my prediction.
On the fly. Okay.
I'm going to change my prediction. You know what? I'm talking myself back into it because I had them initially. If the Bengals get off to a slow start, though, then it's going to be tough. But I think if they ride that, just like the Cowboys, if they ride that energy that they brought against the 49ers and Brock Purdy, then they can sure as hell beat the Buffalo Bills. So I'm going to go Bengals. And I'm going to say it's going to be – I do think it's going to be a little closer, though, because these are two really good teams. So I'm going to say Bengals 21-13.
All right. Dustin, who do you have taking this one?
This is going to be the most watched game of the entire weekend for one reason and one reason only. Last December, Damar Hamlin nearly lost his life on this football field in Cincinnati. So to have him – not only playing again, but to have him return to the field where all this happened, you're going to see such emotion from him. You're going to see such emotion from the Bills. You're going to see such emotion just from that Cincinnati crowd because they had to witness what happened last year. They were there on Monday night, what happened last year. So just getting him back and in this building, I think it's just going to be one of those things where the atmosphere is not going to be something you're going to be able to duplicate. And it's one of those situations where both teams are going, or both sets of fans are going to cheer for one specific individual because of what happened. Obviously, getting to the game, Cincinnati is doing what Cincinnati's done the last 4 years. You get off to a slow start for a month, you figure stuff out, and then all of a sudden you rip off 7-8 straight wins to put yourself not only back in the AFC North Division championship picture, but to put yourself in kind of one of those top two seeds in the AFC. And they still have work to do, obviously, because Baltimore's playing so well and the Browns only have 2 losses and some of these other teams right with them have better records. But the Bengals are starting to do what they've done the past couple of years versus the Bills. The Bills are in trouble, I think. And I think a lot of this has to do with not having Brian Daboll there anymore as the offensive coordinator. Ken Dorsey took over as the offensive coordinator last year, and Josh Allen had his worst statistical season since his rookie season under Ken Dorsey last year. And he really hasn't looked that good this year under Ken Dorsey. Yes, he's looked better lately, but he really hasn't played the way he played under Brian Daboll as he's doing under Ken Dorsey. And that just goes to show you the type of offensive coordinator that Brian Daboll was to get the most out of Josh Allen at that time. I think Cincinnati keeps doing what they've been doing lately. They went into San Francisco and not only beat San Francisco, but they dominated San Francisco on the road. Joe Burrow's calf actually looks healthy now, and a lot of us thought that'd be something that was maybe going to linger the entire season. I think Cincinnati wins by 10. I got Cincinnati 31-21.
All right. For me, like you mentioned, Dustin set up the narrative really well there. There's going to be a lot of emotion in this game, before the kickoff and during, the first few plays, I'm sure. But then once they get things settled, once the emotions come back under check and the game is going to be the main focus. You've got 2 really good teams. Obviously the Bengals have struggled this year, at least in terms of how they looked early on with Joe Burrow's calf injury. Here lately, they've looked a little bit stronger. And as for Buffalo, we've been saying for how many years now that they're the favorites in the AFC in terms of just how well they've looked. Well, people are starting to catch up. And Buffalo has to do something very quick. So thoughts on this one, Nate? It's going to be, who's the better quarterback at the moment? Is it Josh Allen or is it going to be Joe Burrow? For me, Jay, you mentioned Leonard Fournette. The Bills brought in this week. Absolutely looks like a tank. He's in great shape versus Joe Mixon. And, of course, you got the tremendous wide receivers on both ends of the ball. But I'm going to go with another close game in this one. I don't want any blowouts in these good games, man. I want to see tight matchups. So I'll go a 7-point ball game. I'll go with the Cincinnati Bengals getting the W in this one. I'll go Cincinnati 24, and I'll go with the Buffalo Bills putting up 17. All right, and as we move forward here, going on to the last game, if I can get things going here. Looks like my laptop's having issues, but that is how we, that's just how life is.
And that is how life is sometimes. We have lost Logan Landis, but never fear, Jay is here. So let's talk about this Chargers-Jets, shall we? Stat guy, Chargers-Jets, baby. Who you liking?
If Aaron Rodgers was playing, I'd like the Jets a little bit more, but I mean, I do got to give Zach Wilson some credit because the amount of flack that Zach Wilson has taken the last couple of years for his play, and granted, he has no one to blame but himself because he did it to himself. But after Aaron Rodgers went down, things could have spiraled out of control in a hurry for Zach Wilson, and the season could have been over for the Jets right then and there. But the Jets are sitting at 4-3, and obviously the Jets defense is a major reason why they are 4-3 because they still have one of the best defenses in the NFL, and they're going to have one of the best defenses in the NFL as long as Robert Saleh is still there. But Zach Wilson, he's not playing great, but Zach Wilson is playing the best football he's played since he's become a pro 3 years ago.
There we go.
I know that's not saying much, but at least he's taking care of the ball a lot more now than what he was doing. At least he's doing a lot of the little things that they expected him to do when they drafted him number 2 overall. He just needs to do it on a more consistent basis. Then you look at the Chargers. Yes, they played the Bears last Sunday night and completely annihilated them. They scored 27 points on their first 5 drives of the game and ended up scoring on 6 of their 8 drives in total. But that was a must-win game for the Chargers in order to, at this point, save their season just because 3-4 looks a lot different than 2-5. And to this day, and really the last 3 years in general, the Chargers are the most frustrating team in the NFL. They have a top 5 quarterback in Justin Herbert. They have one of the best running backs in Austin Eckler. You have a wide receiver combo of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, and now you have that Joshua Palmer who's emerging as a legitimate option in the wide receiver room. Your tight ends are Donald Parham and Gerald Everett. They have one of the best offenses in the league. Defensively, they're number 2 in the NFL against the run. They're much better against the pass this year than what they've been in the past, and yet they're barely a 500 team because their moronic head coach doesn't believe in kicking field goals or punting and decides that you have to go for it every single time on 4th down, whether you're at your own 30 or the other team's 10. If he would just coach like a normal coach and kick field goals every now and then, the Los Angeles Chargers would be a Super Bowl contender every single year because they have the talent to do so. They got that win last week against the Bears to kind of save their season. I think they just take care of the Jets. The Jets defense might keep things close early on, but offensively, the Jets don't have the same horses that the Chargers do on offense. I think the Chargers win 27-14.
All right, and after my technical difficulties, because don't you love live streaming? Jay, have you went?
No, not yet.
Okay,
But
yeah,
mine's
Jay,
going to be
go ahead
super
real quick, my
quick.
friend.
Yeah, mine is super quick. Look, since when did the Jets minus Aaron Rodgers have a better record than the Chargers? I don't know. I'm living in some kind of weird universe. The Jets are struggling on offense. The Chargers are struggling on defense. Wilson is playing like crap at 5 picks and 5 touchdowns. But somehow or another, the Jets are stumbling and bumbling and jumbling over the Chargers right now with a better record. It's crazy. I feel like I'm in an alternate universe, Logan. I'm going to keep this super quick, and I'm just going to go Jets. For some reason, I'm going to ride that magic wave, and I'm going to go Jets over Chargers 17-10.
Yeah, this is an ugly game. That's for sure. This feels like it should be more so for the Thursday night slot because those are where the lesser games go. But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know what is the problem with Los Angeles with the Chargers. I mean, they just have never been able to get it going here under this kind of new regime with Justin Herbert, who's a great quarterback. I mean, he's done really good, but they've just struggled. And like Dusty mentioned, I think it's on the head coaching. But that's another story for another day. Jets, they're hanging in there. They're doing something. They're not great. They're not awful, but they're just kind of there. So final score for me, I'll go with the Chargers getting a close one in this one. Give me Los Angeles final score of 17. And I'll go with the Jets. I'll go with 13. Might not make it a 4-point ball game in this. Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. Of course, live here on the Elite Sports and Entertainment Network on our Facebook channel, YouTube page, also on X or Twitter, also on Twitch as well. And also thank you to Northeast Streaming Sports for allowing us to broadcast on their Roku channel. Go check them out on all of their platforms. From Jay McLovin, Dustin Reese, I've been your host and producer, Logan Landers. Enjoy your weekend, everyone, and go watch some football. We'll see you again